Preview. Preview.
Hey everybody, this is Perch, and a little viewer question here. It's about industry growth. So it says, hey Perch, I would like to pick your brain about something that's been on my mind for quite some time. This may seem like a stupid question, but I need your perspective. There are stupid questions, but I don't think this is going to be a stupid question. So let's see what we got here. With everything that's been going on in the Big Two, why haven't companies like Amazon, Valiant, or even Dynamite jumped at the opportunity, put out better comics, and shock the industry? Instead of Diamond putting up with the BS of DC and Marvel, why not buy some well-known properties, hire some respected and experienced writers, editors, and artists, and create their own comic book universe? There are so many opportunities out there. Just get through the legal BS, make deals with a Jim Lee or a Chuck Dixon, and shake the industry up. There's got to be a way, but I'm very into. I'm very in your input. Okay, thanks for the advance. Keep up the good work. Okay, so well, first off, I mean the easiest thing is easier said than done. And the problem that a lot of the smaller companies have, and keep in mind, like Diamond is a distributor, so they're not playing in this space at all. There's been a lot of speculation, like why doesn't Diamond actually start printing their own comics? Why don't they get into the business? And I know it's been proposed by some people in Diamond, and it makes sense, right? You want to work in comics, so you go work for Diamond. They're in comics, but they're not actually making comics. And there's a lot of workers at Diamond who say, we see the data, we see what moves, we could do it ourselves, but very far away from where they currently are. And I think that's, you kind of reference the stumbling block throughout your question. You may not realize it. It's about finances. If for example, if Diamond really wanted to play in the space, the thing they need to do is purchase one of these companies. If they did, by the way, then they'd open up a whole, batch of questions around preferential treatment and everything else. It would get very messy quickly. But for the others, if you're talking about, say, hiring a Jim Lee, the challenge is Jim Lee isn't cheap. And Lee is, he currently has a really nice stacked salary over at DC at Warner Media. That is, easily in excess of seven figures. So you're going to have to cough up a lot of cash to do that. And keep in mind, he's making that salary and he is not, drawing a monthly book. I think the idea of Jim Lee, the only way Jim Lee is going to do a comic book at this point is if, he wakes up one morning and decides, the passion is in him. He's got to do it, before he dies, he's got to do another monthly book because it's certainly not about financials anymore. So that becomes a problem there. It becomes a problem with a lot of big names. If you're a small company, you're like, I just want to go do it, you're going to have cash. You're going to have to pay some dollars they frankly don't have. And they don't have a good path to go meet them. I mean, the way you could play this game is there's a couple different routes, but none of them are very good. One of them is, hey, some really wealthy person comes in and decides to basically lose money, spend millions of dollars producing comic books with the hopes that they can slingshot basically the market. They can, spend money, get market share, get something out there, start to, do better, take control, and then, they'll make all their money back. The comic business is a low margin business, so they're not going to. That's an unlikely route. A lot of really perfect things would have to happen, and people have tried and failed. A lot of money has been lost that way. Doesn't mean it's impossible. I would argue that the reason why a lot of those efforts have failed is kind of one key reason, and it's that they keep going back to people who are within comics. I can't begin to tell you the amount of conversations I've had with smaller companies or up-and-coming companies, and they talk about, hey, you know what? We got advice from Bob Harris. Or, they always go to people who have been in the industry for decades and, arguably do not have new ideas to give. If you're a company, what was it, like Humanoids, right? They're like, we're going to get Mark Waid to advise us. I'm sure Mark Waid has ideas. Why not? But if you're a new company and you're coming in trying to disruption, usually means, new. It means that we're going to not try the same old things. And a lot of people that get hired, they run the same exact playbook. And there's almost a cynicism about it. I think there's this kind of behavior that comes up with a lot of older executives where, they're like, this is never going to work. I mean, put it this way, I've heard this come out of people's mouths before of like, this is never going to work, but I think they have enough cash to go 5 years. And so in their heads, it's like, I'm just going to bleed this place out for 5 years and then I'll move on to the next one. And there's a built-in defeat kind of right out the gate. It always makes me really, really frustrated. I don't like to see money just get wasted and lost. But right now, if you're starting up a company and you're going after, people to run it who have been in comics, you're probably wasting your money. And I've got a lot of friends in comics. I want them to be employed, but you need some different voices. You need some different people in there. And if you don't do that, I mean, it's anyway. I think that's the way it tanks. Um, I you know I do think there's an open opportunity right now for a company to do well and to get some market share, but it's going to take, as I mentioned, a lot of money. It's going to take time, and it's going to take some really savvy kind of marketing, perception people to shape what it is that this thing's going to be. I think that's the hardest part. Is that you've got to get some people in there who are willing to, really shape the product that's going to get put out, really help speak to the market, help inform, help, work really, really hard. And it takes a lot of expertise. And frankly, the people who are really good at this, they're not working in comics. They're able to go get a job that pays a lot more somewhere else. So in many cases, comics winds up hiring the true believers. And you might think that's a good thing, and it often is. You get people who are just passionate about comics who that's their life. But unfortunately, and I'm finding myself agreeing with something Tom Brevoort said, which is a rare day. But anyway, there was this statement that came out that said, don't put the people who are completely in love with the character on the comic with that character. If somebody says, their absolute favorite character to write in the entire world was the Hulk, don't give them the Hulk to write. I don't agree with that when it comes to making comics. I think that having that kind of knowledge, that history is turns out to be valuable. But there is grudgingly, I'll admit, there's some wisdom to that statement, because the other thing that goes along there is if you are really into something, if you're really passionate about something, you tend to have blinders about your own failures or your own flaws. And you see this kind of crop up time and time again, where somebody is they're coming into this market, and they refuse to admit or see areas of where there's obvious need for improvement. They also tend to misunderstand the market they're going after. They love it, so therefore everyone loves it. That's kind of the way it goes in their head. But you have to, if you're going to really succeed in business, you have to go in very eyes open, very aware of what the flaws are, very aware of where your weaknesses are, and have a strategy and a plan to combat it, to mitigate it. And that's hard to do. It's not simple. If it was, you'd see lots of businesses just doing great, exploding all over. But you don't. Um, I think that the idea of hey, with the big two struggling, why don't more people just go for it? Well, I mean, the answer is a lot of people are. It's just the definition of success really varies. I mean, look, you see some people doing crowdfunded books, and they're saying, we're very successful, we're beating the big two. Well, financially, they're not, but from a maybe a customer relations perspective, from a they're getting money directly, they're making more money than they would make at the big two. So on a personal level, yeah. So it's all about where kind of things sit. Right now, I mean, just from my vantage point, I think wherever you're at, big two, indie, crowdfunded, direct to consumer, whatever it happens to be, everybody's kind of missing one piece in order to be really successful. For the big two, the thing they're missing is price and distribution. They're too expensive, and they're distributed too few places. If you're Marvel or DC, your entire play should be about mass market. It should be about cranking out hundreds of thousands of comics. If you're a small indie, that is not your business model. You're not going to have the infrastructure, or you may want to get there someday, but your definition of success doesn't need to be, hey, I want to be in every grocery store. That's one way you're very different from Marvel and DC. But the thing that's missing from you is really good marketing, really good awareness. Well, there's a lot of good, very strong indie books that nobody knows about. I mentioned before, I love Ragnarok. Nobody, it's amazing how few people know that exists, given the talent that's on it. Walter Simonson. It's amazing that book just flies quite just under the radar. But it indicates a problem with the indie market. There's a huge lack of kind of business penetration, market penetration, and marketing. There's just it doesn't exist where it should. On the crowdfunded side, it's a little bit of, I mean, the challenge is, one of the things that makes it great is it's a do-it-yourself, business. But that's also one of the things that holds it back. It's very hard for it to scale. When I say scale, I mean truly scale, not just, it'd be great. You make $1 million off of a campaign. That's, again, good for the individual. But where does it go beyond there? It's not these, and you see like Zoop trying to solve that, and you see, Dark Horse reaching out to some creators saying, we'll take it and we'll, republish it from here and get you into some other channels and all the rest. But nothing is solid yet. They're all unique efforts. And by the way, these aren't insults to any one group. It's just an observation. That's where it currently sits. And so these problems do have to be recovered and have to be solved at a big level, not a, I'm very much pleased when I see there's a couple people out there who do YouTube channels where every day they feature a new, crowdfunded creator. That's great. Keep doing that. That's not, getting broad awareness. You're still stuck in that same fairly limited channel, but it's a start. And every little bit does help. And that the only way we're going to push through this is if, people keep trying, and we will stumble onto the answer. So there's a lot of work that can still be done. But anyway, I hope that answered your question. Why it's fundamentally it's just harder than people think. It's not like, I mean, Valiant has no money. I mean, if the Amazon has tons of money, but they have, clearly made a decision that, they can do it other places. And Dynamite is trying. Nick is a good guy. He's fighting the fight too. He's definitely trying to get out there. But so people are trying. It's not like overnight you could achieve that success. I think that's the challenge. Anyway, thank you for your question, and let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And thanks for listening.